Good morning. It's Tuesday, the 21st of January. You're tuned in to our 10 a.m. newscast, coming to you from ARIRANG's news centre in Seoul. Let's take a look at what's making the headlines. Authorities believe migratory ducks found dead near the first farm to fall foul of the latest bird flu outbreak likely brought the virus to Korea's southwest. Police and the military have been drafted in to control traffic at restricted locations. President Park Geun-hye, on a state visit to Switzerland, seals a number of deals to boost cooperation with the European country in science and information technology, vocational training and medical industries. Plus, the United States and the UN begin to ease some sanctions on Iran after the international nuclear watchdog confirms Tehran has halted its most sensitive nuclear operations. Let's start with the latest on the bird flu outbreak that has Korea on edge. Efforts to contain the spread of the virus continue in the nation, with 3 farms in the country's southwestern Jeollado area confirmed to have been hit with the highly pathogenic H5N8 strain of the bird flu. Officials are saying it's increasingly likely migratory ducks were the source of the outbreak. If this is the case, quarantine officials worry the virus could easily spread or may have already spread to other parts of the country, including the metropolitan area. Although the government's first ever 48-hour standstill ban, which prohibits people from travelling and transferring equipment and poultry products, was lifted at the start of this Tuesday, officials remain on high alert, expanding sterilisation locations. Since the outbreak was confirmed last Friday, around 120,000 ducks have been culled. Many more could be destroyed in the coming days. Turning to President Park's state visit to Switzerland now, the Korean leader and her Swiss counterpart have pledged to work together to realise a so-called creative economy through technological cooperation and by fostering specialised personnel. Our presidential correspondent Oh Jin-ju, who is travelling with the president, sends us this report.
Cooperation in the sectors of industrial technology and education dominated summit talks Monday between President Park and President of the Swiss Confederation, Didier Burkhalter. The two leaders recognized the need to couple Switzerland's top-notch technology in precision machinery, chemical, nano and bio industries with Korea's advanced manufacturing skills, a crucial point of cooperation in realizing the so-called creative economy.
스위스는 세계적인 기초과학 강국이고 또 한국은 IT와 응용 기술이 발달한 나라라서 양국의 협력이 서로에게 큰 도움이 될 거라고 생각합니다.
Out of the 11 MOUs and 1 agreement that were signed during the president's state visit, 3 were on technology cooperation. President Park also sought ways to harness the strengths of Korean and Swiss education to foster specialized personnel that can work well within the creative economy. Switzerland is well known for its educational system, which is based heavily on apprenticeship. Most high school students are trained in vocational schools called Berufsschule, where they spend 3 to 4 days a week in companies to gain experience in industrial settings. An MOU was signed between the two nations to provide opportunities for graduates of Korea's vocational high schools or Meister schools employed in Swiss companies operating in Korea to receive vocational training in Switzerland for a year. There are also a number of MOUs signed to boost trade and investment, including a social security agreement that would relieve Korean and Swiss employees working in each other's countries from double taxation. It wasn't just the economic topics that topped the summit agenda. The Swiss leader promised to throw full support behind Seoul's efforts to maintain stability on the Korean peninsula and persuade North Korea to denuclearize. Oh Jin-ju, ARIRANG News, Bern.
Now to the massive security breach of personal data here in Korea that has millions of Koreans on edge. Taking responsibility for the personal information leaks of millions of bank account and credit card holders, several executives of credit card firms resigned en masse on Monday. President Park, who is on a state visit to Switzerland, has ordered her ministers to severely punish the perpetrators of the leak. Kim Yeon-ji has the latest.
The CEOs of KB Kookmin Card, Lotte Card, and NH Nongyop Card spoke out on Monday to assure the public in the wake of the nation's largest ever personal information leak. They said they would cover any financial losses caused to their customers in entirety and are also considering compensation for any psychological damage the breach may have caused. Later Monday, more than 24 KB Financial Group managers, including the CEO of KB Kookmin Card, Shim Jae-oh, along with the CEO of NH Nongyop Card, Son Kyung-ik, offered to resign from their posts. The information of at least 20 million Korean bank and credit card users was leaked. That affects almost all economically active people in a country of 50 million. The Financial Supervisory Service says the information taken includes the names, phone numbers, credit card numbers, addresses, and even banking records of customers. Financial Services Commission Chairman Shin Jae-yoon and Financial Supervisory Service Governor Choi Soo-hyun are among the millions affected. The government has warned that those found responsible will face extremely tough criminal penalties. Prime Minister Chung Won-won on Monday ordered the chief of the nation's regulatory body, the Financial Services Commission, to go after those responsible in the strongest possible way and inform the public about the exact damages and circumstances of the leak. Chung also asked for strong countermeasures to ensure such incidents don't happen again. Regulators have already launched investigations into security measures at the affected firms. The Financial Supervisory Service told ARIRANG TV that they are working closely with the Financial Services Commission and that they are looking into tougher fines and a suspension of business for the firms who had their data leaked. State prosecutors, meanwhile, have moved to reassure the public that the incident has not resulted in the leakage of any information to criminal organizations, for now at least. Kim Hyun-ji, ARIRANG News.
Kenneth Bae, the Korean-American missionary being held in North Korea, has made a desperate plea for the US government to secure his release. In a recorded video message released on Monday, Bae said he had committed a serious crime against North Korea, adding that the regime does not abuse human rights. He asked the US government, media and even his family to stop releasing materials related to him, which he said were not based on the facts. Now, it is worth remembering that any statement made by Bae in captivity would be sanctioned by the North Korean government, and the regime does have a very long history of extracting false confessions. Bae was arrested in November 2012, accused of crimes against the state, for which he was sentenced to 15 years of hard labor. Top officials from South Korea and the US will meet in Seoul this month to come up with ways to deal with North Korea after Pyongyang threatened to launch a provocation if Seoul and Washington carry out their annual joint military drills in February. Strained ties in Northeast Asia surrounding Japan's denial of its wartime atrocities will also be front and center of the talks. Kim Hyun-bin reports.
A lineup of top U.S. officials will travel to Seoul this month to address the uncertainties in the region stemming from North Korea. U.S. Deputy Secretary of State William Burns is scheduled for talks on Tuesday in Seoul with South Korea's top presidential security advisor Kim Jang-soo and Vice Foreign Minister Kim Yu-hyun. Burns' visit comes after Pyongyang's proposal that the two Koreas stop any actions that could stoke tensions on the peninsula. They have called on Seoul and Washington to cancel the joint annual Key Resolve and Full Eagle military drills next month. Last week, Admiral Sam Locklear, commander of the U.S. Pacific Command, told a Navy conference in Washington last week that his most urgent concern is the unpredictability of North Korea. Locklear even went so far as to say that Pyongyang is capable of causing a catastrophic event using its nuclear weapons on South Korea. Meanwhile, U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for East Asia Daniel Russell is expected to arrive in Seoul on Sunday to discuss regional issues, including strained ties in Northeast Asia, following Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's controversial war shrine visit last month. Kim Hyun-bin, ARIRANG News.
A memorial hall in China honoring a Korean independence fighter has drawn deep disapproval from Japan. Kim Ji-yeon has more on the latest chapter in regional tensions.
The Japanese government says it is deeply regretful about Beijing's decision to approve the opening of a memorial hall honoring Korean independence fighter An Jung-gun. Japanese Chief Cabinet Secretary Yoshihide Suga's response comes a day after the memorial hall opened to the public in the northeastern Chinese city of Harbin. The city's railway station is where in 1909 An shot and killed Hirobumi Ito, who served as Prime Minister of Japan and led preparations for the annexation of the Korean peninsula to Japan in the early 20th century.
This is the place where the Japanese Prime Minister was murdered, and for us, this is the place where the terrorist An Jung-gun was sentenced to death.
The memorial hall consists of exhibition rooms telling the story of An's life and shows the exact spot of Ito's assassination. The facility was built after Korean President Park Geun-hye brought up the idea of creating a monument for An during her meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping last June. Although hailed as a hero in Korea and China, An is considered a murderer by many in Japan. Tokyo had asked Beijing to scrap plans to build a memorial and call the embassies of China and Korea to complain about the matter. Beijing's decision to go ahead with the memorial comes amid already heightened tensions in the region. Seoul and Beijing have condemned the visits by high-profile Japanese politicians to the controversial Yasukuni war shrine and for Tokyo's refusal to apologize for the country's wartime atrocities. Kim Ji-yeon, ARIRANG News.
And strongly critical of the Japanese officials' remarks, the Korean Foreign Ministry says An is a highly respected figure not only in Korea but around the world for the sacrifice he had made to achieve peace in Asia. The ministry then said Ito was the main culprit who led Japan's invasion of Korea, and it accused the Abe administration of glorifying Japan's imperialistic past. After days of will they or won't they, the main opposition group in Syria, the Syrian National Coalition, has confirmed that it will attend peace talks in Switzerland on Wednesday after the UN withdrew its controversial invitation for Iran to attend. Park Ji-won has more.
UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon withdrew his invitation for Iran to attend the much-anticipated peace talks on Syria, set to begin in Switzerland this week, after Iran refused to accept a 2012 Geneva deal calling for a transitional government for Syria.
The Secretary-General is deeply disappointed by Iranian public statements today that are not at all consistent with that stated commitment. Given that it has chosen to remain outside that basic understanding, he has decided that the one-day Montreux gathering will proceed without Iran's participation.
The UN's controversial last-minute decision to invite Iran had threatened to jeopardize the talks before they had even started, as Syria's main opposition group, the Syrian National Coalition, said it would not participate in the talks unless Iran, one of the Assad regime's major backers, was disinvited, and Tehran stopped exerting a military influence over Syria. After the UN withdrew Iran's invitation, the Syrian National Coalition confirmed its participation at the peace talks.
The National Coalition welcomes the decision of the Secretary-General of the United Nations, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, in withdrawing the invitation that was sent to Iran. The National Coalition also would like to confirm its attendance to Geneva II conference and its participation in it.
The peace talks, involving some 30 countries, are scheduled to begin Wednesday in Montreux, Switzerland. On Friday, talks between the Syrian government and opposition delegations will continue in Geneva. More than 100,000 people have been killed and millions more displaced since the Syrian conflict broke out some 3 years ago. Park Ji-won, ARIRANG News.
Trust in Iran has suspended its most sensitive nuclear operations as part of its preliminary deal with world powers. Tehran's move, which should lessen the likelihood of war, wins the country some much-needed relief from crippling economic sanctions. The International Atomic Energy Agency confirmed on Monday that Iran has halted production of uranium with a concentration of above 5% and had begun diluting its stockpile of 20% enriched uranium. Iran can now benefit from the easing of sanctions worth up to $7 billion, including recovering frozen oil revenues worth some $4.2 billion. The interim deal was struck in Geneva in November last year after months of talks between Iran and the 5 UN Security Council members and Germany. Trust in the US and other world governments took a tumble last year, with Washington's nose especially bloodied over the budget crisis, the NSA surveillance scandal, and the disastrous launch of President Obama's signature healthcare reforms. According to a study commissioned and released by the UN public relations firm Edelman on Monday, just 37% of college-educated adults said they trusted the US government. That's down 16 points from a year earlier and 7 points below the global average. Levels of trust in governments in France, Spain and Italy were even lower, but analysts say the scale of the American decline was particularly dramatic. The results of the survey will be presented at the World Economic Forum meeting in Davos, which kicks off on Wednesday. New economic data shows the Chinese economy grew 7.7% on year in 2013. It marks the slowest growth for China since 1999, as the country looks ahead to rebalancing its economy and enacting major reform measures, our Paulie reports.
The world's second largest economy expanded 7.7% in the fourth quarter of last year, down from 7.8% in the previous quarter, largely due to low growth in investment and domestic demand. According to the National Bureau of Statistics on Monday, China managed to pull off a 7.7% growth rate last year, beating the government's target estimate of 7.5%. The new figures represent an unchanged growth rate from 2012 and a 2.3% decline compared to 2011, indicating that China's GDP is stuck at its slowest pace in nearly 14 years. The NBS says the global economic slowdown has negatively impacted demand for Chinese goods, with industrial output increasing by 9.7% last month on year, down more than 0.5% from 2012. Meanwhile, China's retail sales in December gained 13.6% in 2013, marking a 1.6% decline from the previous year. However, Beijing appears to be firmly focused on the future, chalking up the prolonged slowdown as growing pains for a more balanced economy. After 30 years of double-digit economic growth, the head of the NBS, Ma Jiantang, says the country is now entering a stage of transformation and development. The country's Communist Party has pledged to carry out sweeping reforms to lay the foundation for sustainable expansion and a more open economy. Though China's economic growth last year is widely considered to be stable overall, 2014 may prove to be another story. Some analysts are concerned that China could lose further momentum as it promotes domestic consumption at the expense of exports and investment. But any dramatic change and deep structural reforms are likely to come at the cost of economic growth, a price Beijing says it is willing to pay. Paul Yi, ARIRANG News.
Now in news akin to a science fiction movie, the comet-chasing Rosetta spacecraft has awoken from its 31-month hibernation to prepare for its daring mission, meeting up with and then attaching a small robotic lander to the surface of a comet as it cruises through our solar system. A signal confirming its alert status was received by controllers at the European Space Agency and NASA on Monday. Originally launched in 2004, Rosetta has spent the last decade building up enough speed to reach its ultimate target, which is Comet 67P, Churyumov-Gerasimenko. Rosetta should meet up with that comet in August. Scientists say the mission should offer a unique insight into a comet's behavior and ultimately help them decipher comets' role in the formation of the solar system.
And a good Tuesday morning to you all as we kick things off with the 2014 Asian Games in Incheon. With 45 Asian nations being invited to the competition, only one nation rejected the invitation. That is until Monday when North Korea decided to participate in football. Now, the North Korean Football Association has told the officials in charge of the upcoming Asian Games that the North Korean men's and women's football team will compete in Incheon this September. This is the first time that North Korea has contacted first, stating their desire to compete at the Games. While it's unsure whether other athletes will compete in other events, they have until June 20th to finalize their roster. Meanwhile, back in 2002 Busan Asian Games, North Korea finished with 33 medals, including 9 gold medals. Moving on, the K-League officials on Monday had a meeting to review the past season. And with that, they revealed the customer transaction numbers out to the public. Now, the numbers revealed that FC Seoul topped the sales in the 2013 season, with Anyang FC topping the sales number over in the K-League Challenge. However, the Suwon Samsung Blue Wings, known for their fans, topped the attendance with 336,098 fans, with FC Seoul coming in second with over 310,000. The league saw a total attendance of 2,039,475 fans for an average of 7,638 fans per match. However, the league only saw a profit of 3,708 per seat, or little less than $3.50. And shifting over to winter sports, where 2 more Koreans are headed over to Sochi after the Korean skeleton team earned 2 tickets to the upcoming Winter Games. And heading over to the Sochi Winter Games are 26-year-old Lee Han-shin, who's currently the captain of the Korean skeleton team. And joining him will be the 20-year-old Yoon Sung-bin, who won a gold medal at the 6th round of the Intercontinental Cup earlier this month. And finishing things off in swimming, where Marine boy Park Tae-hwan started off the new season with a bang, winning 2 gold medals in Australia. With the 2014 Brisbane Championship taking place, 25-year-old Park Tae-hwan finished first in the 200-meter freestyle event, coming in at a time of 1 minute 48 seconds flat, and also finished first in the 400-meter freestyle event with the final time of 3 minutes 47.72 seconds. Now, Park also added a silver medal in the 100-meter event, as he plans to compete in one more event before heading back to Korea. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day, and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Certainly is very wintry scenes here in Seoul, at least, and time now to get a check on the weather conditions not only in Korea but around the world. Okay, before we leave you, we have some news just coming in. The Korean government says the Korean trade official who was kidnapped in the Libyan capital Tripoli on Sunday local time is safe. There is no other detailed information at this time, but for the latest on this hopefully positive development, tune in to our next newscast, which is coming up at noon Korea time. Until then, goodbye.